Hi everyone, thanks again for joining us for the film and the Q&A. Hope you really enjoyed it. I'm just going to go through and ask Alessandro some questions now about the film, and then we'll hand it over to you guys as well. So do you want to tell us a quick overview about yourself as a filmmaker?
Sure. So as a filmmaker, I decided to make this documentary because I grew up in the free festival community, but at the same time I also went to clubs and festivals, and to be honest, I never really made a difference. During the years I really wanted to create, document this free party world in a way that was never done before, because all the videos I watched before were just kind of stereotypized by media, or just focusing on drugs, the fact they were illegal, on private property, but they never really went behind. They really never gave freedom of speech to those who started the movement, to those who go to the to free parties, and understand why this has become the longest, counterculture ever. So as a filmmaker, I said, okay, that's the moment, so I literally came up with the idea of saying, I'm just going to interview one of my favorite DJs, Weasel Busters, and I dropped him an email, it was like, oh, Weasel Busters, I have been following him for years. Like, he won't ever reply, but, after 2 minutes, I got a reply back. He was, yeah, of course, I live in Spain, but I'll be at Balter Festival next week. You want to come? I say, fuck, yeah, of course. And then he introduced me to all the others, Chris Liberators, Mandy Dextros, and the Boomtown guys. Okay. And I say, okay, this is becoming bigger, than expected.
You reached out to the right guy.
Oh yeah, seriously. And then, the project has always been a one-man band. And during COVID time, I had the luck to, get 2 of my best mates in. So one of them was focused on the color grading, and the other one on the artistic direction of it. So right. The 3 of us together kind of created and finalized this documentary.
Great. So you've said that you grew up in this sort of scene in Italy, and then you've moved here. So you've experienced both sides. What do you think are the main differences around the culture in the continent and here? So
I would say, as Ryan from Total Resistance Sound System said, the main difference is that in Italy and the rest of Europe, free parties are specifically linked with the techno music, 180 BPM, while here in the UK, it's never been the case. Rather, I know some very old school ravers who actually don't like techno music. Right. And I myself, when I moved to London 13 years ago, my free party here, there was kind of drum and bass, and I was, what the fuck?
Yeah, right.
And at some point, there was an MC rapping, and for me, this was like, no, that's not a free party. But I must say that during the years, I actually started to appreciate, if not prefer, the British way. Yeah. Just because it's more heterogeneous and gives more space to different genres. Here, for the first time, I've seen a live band at a free party. I'm not saying that it never happened in the rest of Europe. Maybe I never had the luck to experience this. But I believe that here we are more open with the idea of, kind of everybody in with any kind of music. So yeah, I would say that this is the main difference.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I wouldn't have known that as a British raver. I have been to Technovals as well, but of course it is mainly just focused around that. So that's really interesting to hear. So what is it, that sort of mass difference that sort of inspired you to want to show it from this side of how the scene is? Like, what sort of inspired the film, really? So what
inspired the film? So I think one of the core points of the film is the artistic and music evolution of an artist. I've heard of many people saying, oh, you come from the free party scene, so you can't absolutely go to clubs and festivals. And I admit, when I was 17, 18, you're immature, and you said, I was myself one of them. Say, hey, I've seen you on the other day at a free party. Why the fuck should I come to a club?
Yeah, right.
But then, you grow up and you start to understand that, you know, they're musicians, they're professionals, and it doesn't mean that if you come from a free party, you cannot play in a club as well, because you're just proposing your music. So when I realized this, I was still seeing many people who were not. So I say, okay, I need to, you know, really give space to these artists to make this more known. And that's why I think this film had a great reception from all the artists involved in it.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. I'd never really even considered that people shouldn't do both because they've got to make a living. But I can see like this attitude from the film. I've learnt a lot that people were like, no, you have to stay underground. So it's interesting. It's educated me as well.
I'm glad.
What's been the most memorable interview or something that's happened with making of the film? So,
well, I must say that some of these interviews, as you probably heard, they had a lot of background noise. The only reason why was because, you know, we were filming like at 3, 4 in the morning behind a sound system with music banging crazy. And of course, you know, I never wanted to approach artists, annoying them, you know, like, oh, you know, I'm a BBC journalist, you know, we need to make things properly. No. I wanted to do like let's say an underground interview, just make them feel at ease. Yeah. So I just interviewed them where they asked me to. So some of them were just a free party and they told me like, come tonight. And we did the interview there. So I think that's what I mostly appreciated. Yeah,
that's cool.
And so, yeah.
So a bit of a challenge sometimes technically, but you got there in the end.
Yes, I once had that as I was making the film, you know, like as a professional, I was a bit reluctant to say, oh my God, what if people say, you know, this is like very shaky or very dark footage or very noisy sounds. But then you realize, hey, this is like underground. So I think it's all, you know, kind of at the end puzzled in the right way.
So what do you think about the future of the movement? There's obviously a lot of negative press and ever-changing laws. And crackdowns, do you think it's going to live on?
Absolutely. So I'm going to repeat what at the end Black Kirk said. So this movement will never die because it will always regenerate. Yeah. There will always be someone with enough courage to go on. It might be cyclical, like perhaps in Italy at the moment we have a very strong right-wing political party, right. And as it happened 30 years ago in the UK, it declared like strong war against free parties, and they are bringing it on, meaning if you organize a free party, you can get up to 5 years in prison, which, guys, wow. It's 5 fucking years in prison. It fucks you up,
big
okay?
Risk.
It's a lot. So in Italy at the moment, it has dramatically slowed down, and I understand it, and I don't blame those who say, okay, let's calm 1 second, because I don't want to go to prison for 5 years. One thing is, you know, doing a free party, because, you know, it's also like a form of protest, but 5 years, you know, it's something different. While I know in France at the moment, it's going very strong again. Right. And who knows, maybe in 5 years, things will invert, but it won't ever die. Yeah. It won't ever die.
Forever. Woo! Should we hand over to the audience?
Yeah, sure.
Any
guys.
Questions, anyone? Be brave.
Go for it, don't be shy.
Lady at the back.
From the beginning of your the idea to do this project until now, how long did it take? Can you tell us maybe like the basic kind of process?
Yeah. I mean, this is a hardcore question because it started 7 years ago, 2017. So I filmed for the first 2 years, 17 and 18. And then I had to stop for almost 2 years. You know, like I had a second baby, family, everyday job. So the hard drives were dying in a drawer, and I was, but you know, I had no time. You know, family takes time. And weirdly enough, COVID happened, and I had a lot of time. So that's also why I managed to involve my 2 mates, one from Spain, one in Italy. So we collaborated all together. And for the post-production, it took almost 2.5 years. And eventually I tried the festival circuit, but for its own nature, this film is very underground, so it wasn't quite working. And last year, the organization which is distributing the film, which is called Doc and Roll, just saw it on Instagram. And they say, oh, you know, you should, which by the way, I fucking hate Instagram. But one of my mates made it to me, said, like, Ale, I made an Instagram account for your film. I was like, what? After a couple of days, these guys from Doc and Roll approached me and said, you know, like, you should really send it to our festival. I say, whoa. I send it, and a couple of weeks later, I received an email back, not selected. And it was like, no. But a couple of weeks later, they phoned me back and they say, look, we really enjoyed your film. It just doesn't work in our festival. However, we think it would really work as a sort of a screening in cinemas. So yeah, I mean, they keep adding dates, both in the UK and the rest of Europe. We're planning New Zealand, Australia. They called us from Oslo, Amsterdam. Some sound systems are now translating all the subtitles in Spanish and France because they want to screen it there. I've got a distribution in Italy. Again, everything's still underground. But they also want to do, right after the summer, an Italian tour. So yeah, I mean, that's been quite a process. And again, almost everything has been a one-man band. And weirdly enough, the most difficult part, and annoying, was the distribution side, because making the film is what I love to do. You know, I'm a filmmaker for a living, so I really liked, and I did this film with passion. But writing emails to distribution houses, whoa. So I literally Googled like a documentary distribution house, and I sent thousands of emails, and knowing that only like 1% would reply. Out of that 1%, 99% would be, we're not interested. But you know, I never give up, and eventually there was the one who said, we fucking love it. So I found a distribution in Italy as well. Thank you.
Big things, lots is happening. Great.
So yeah.
Yay! So
Yes.
we can all go on tour with it maybe for holiday, that'd be nice.
You have?
Is it going to be available for free online at some point?
So regarding profit, so I never started this film with the idea of making any profits. However, it's no secret that, you know, being self-funded, I had to spend a lot of money to make it. So like even buying, you know, hard drives, big hard drives, software, plugins, and traveling around, it's been money. And all the tracks that you heard during the film have been given by artists, and as well as some of the footage have been given by artists. So the idea of this film is balance, and all the profit will be reinvested in the underground community, supporting sound systems and crews who are facing problems with the law, and creating new projects again for the underground community. So at the moment, the film is available in streaming in Europe, in the rest of Europe, and there is no fee. It's a donation, and the reason why at the moment it's not available in the UK is because we're doing this kind of a cinema tour, but starting from September it will also be available in streaming here.
So have you seen or heard any reaction to the laws in Italy? So typically if law gets very ridiculous, then maybe people move to nearby countries, so people going to France or to the east or nearby because they can't party in Italy, or what's the situation?
It's been happening. I haven't seen any people literally like moving as live, but I know that some travelers have. I've got some friends from a sound system in Milano. Basically, they had been having problems for the past year, so they kind of have been organizing all the parties in France to make things easy. Maybe they are kind of on the border. But yeah, of course, maybe if they haven't moved physically to leave, most of the Italian parties have been being organized in France, yeah, which is the kind of closest country that still allows it.
Are you interested in showing your film to the other countries like Netherlands or Poland?
What?
To the other sound system in different countries?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I mean, I made the film so this could be spread as much as possible. So come see me after this. You know, we have a pint and have a chat and exchange contacts. Thank you.
Next question.
I did, yeah. Mine was quite a heavy one with the last one. How politically driven were you to make this film? How politically driven were you to make this film?
Oh.
So a lot of, I feel like the rules and regulations and laws being imposed that directly affect the free party scene, they've been made to directly affect the free party scene. They're seemingly masked as against travellers or about all these different communities. Yeah, what drove you to make this film politically, and how much has that changed, and how has it affected you making this film?
So personally, it didn't affect me at all. Also because, I'll be honest, I've learned a lot by doing this film. Of course, I always knew the history. I read a lot. I always, got documented, and but many of the behind the scene, especially from a law point of view, have been explained to me by those who lived it. I believe that the political, the laws that have been made in the UK in 1994, as you said, they were political laws, and that's what's happening. Yeah, I mean.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. I mean.
Your personal opinion, I guess. How political do you think these laws were, or were they directly?
So I can talk about Italy, what's happening now. So things are not going well in Italy, okay? And the reason why the current right-wing party has declared war to free parties, it's because it's easy to point the finger to something not ordinary, to say it's your fault, or it's the immigrants' fault, like something different. Instead of saying, hey, I should look at myself, am I doing my job in the right way? Am I responding to what people expect from me? No, while it's easier to say, hey, I blame you, I blame that. I mean, it's no secret that free parties are not, kind of your everyday life, generally speaking. That's also, we like it. I mean, we use the word underground because it's on mainstream. So what's underground scares a lot of people, okay? And especially the right wing is more kind of canonic and squared. So it's kind of, I believe it's more scared to the idea of, hey, this is different. Let's try to accept it. And that's why the current Italian right wing is carrying on the war on free parties. It's just political. They probably don't give a shit about just a few people gathering, banging music. What harm are they doing? Okay? So yeah, I think you're right. It's 100% political, and but this hasn't really affected me in the film, and I didn't want to make this the core of the film, but one of the the bullet points, the progression of the free parties, because at the end, these laws that came in 1994 in the UK were the reason why spiral tribes left UK and brought the whole free party scene into Europe.
But a lot of the other things that have been documented have been focused around political issues as well, haven't they? Which is why you wanted this to be different, to show our side as ravers that are not so much involved in that, maybe. Obviously have opinion on it, but like you say with BBC, it would always be focused on that. More so.
Oh yeah, of course. Like if you read any mainstream article about, like perhaps there's been the UK Tech a couple of weeks ago, and I went to the UK Tech last year. So much rain, and so like I was reading, I was having fun reading live the news.
Yeah.
The helicopters. We could see ourselves in front, and what they were writing, it was clearly like written, it looked almost corporate, just kind of pre-made sentences against the Free Party, while never really bother to maybe even stop a single party goer and say, like, why are you going here? So let's try to understand. I never really want to kind of be like 100% supportive of a single movement. I always like to give voice to also someone who might not like the Free Party, which I think that's something I would like to do in the future, because I think it's also maybe a good thing for the Free Party itself, hearing the opinion of those who don't like free parties, but in a structured way, in a positive way. It doesn't have to be like kind of like a harsh debate, an argument. I hear you, you hear me.
Yeah, I think it's really cool actually to hear that side. Yeah.
But from the other side, this doesn't happen.
No.
So
No one gets a chance. Yeah, everyone needs a fair go.
Yeah.
Was there any other questions?
T-shirt, are they free?
I know, I want to!
So everybody is asking this. So this is the guy, he's called Killer X. He's Italian and he designed the logo. He designs almost 90% of the Tekno Free Party flyers in Europe. And he designed the logo, and he also prints and sells T-shirts. And so he just made one for me, and so I should. So
that's the first thing I said.
You need to do more.
Yeah.
And so okay,
on your
okay.
website, we'll all go on and buy them. Yeah.
All right.
Can you remind me who he is? I'll look him up.
That's cool.
Was, yeah.
Killer X.
So thank you. Really enjoyed that.
Well, I'm gonna add something at the entrance. You might see some pictures hanging. So as you saw during the film, there were some pictures which we animated with a sort of parallax technique. So half of those pictures are from Molly Macindoe, who was the first, you also saw it in the film, who was the first photographer documenting the rave movement, and who's also helping me to organize the New Zealand and Australian tour because she lives there. And while the other pictures, the ones you see there, and are from this photographer from Italy called Tito. And if you go on my Instagram, he's tagged, again, fuck Instagram, but in this way I can give you information. It's called Brutti, Sporchi and Cattivi, which means ugly, dirty and bad. So you will see all his artwork in there.
I've got an important one. You've got an incredible network now. You've met all the people from the sector, people are putting it on, people are playing, you're going on a world tour, etc. When's the celebration party?
Hey!
Can we come to it?
So, well, we're gonna have a small DJ set now, and so we're gonna keep you up for the night. I think he's gonna carry on. The guy, a big cheer for the DJ here. But thinking about things in big, have quite a few contacts. So perhaps we can do a sort of kind of free party. And let's fucking do it.
It sounds like a plan.
Question as well. So I see that there are a lot of cool things, like also animated pictures and stuff. So what was just my curiosity, like what was the most challenging thing for you to do during this documentary that required more time, but you think it, at the end of the day worked?
I think the fact that I've never, how can I say this? So it was a one-man band project. So then, of course, I had my mates being behind the camera. As I told you earlier, like my mates helping me with artistic direction and editing. But eventually there was just one brain. So that's been the most challenging thing, having to deal with every single aspect. And even though, they would send me, like this clip colored or that audio clip mixed, I had to go through everything. And that's that hasn't been quite challenging as long as COVID was around. I mean, it sounds so bad saying thank you, COVID, but I mean, you know what I mean. But you know, in the moment that everything started to become more normal again, the most challenging part was, you know, doing my everyday job, rushing to the studio and rushing back home to, you know, prepare dinner to my kids. So that's been the most challenging thing.
Off the back of that, if you did, you know, the other side, like you mentioned before, or going forward with films, would you maybe not do it as a one-man band again, try and get more people on, or did you like the fact that you had full artistic control?
No, I don't like to say, you know, like I want to be in charge of everything. No, I always liked the idea of working in a team. The only reason why, you know, it was just myself, because, you know, it's really difficult to, you know, involve someone else with the same involvement like yours for free. Either you believe in it or you don't. Yeah. Again, my mates like follow me, like Simone, the camera operator, follow me like all over Europe. So yeah, he was quite involved. But yeah, no, I would say I would try to, you know, to put a team together. Yeah. So yeah, that's also why, like, going back to your question, I hope that there's going to be like a profit, not to earn money, but to be reinvested for future projects and have, you know, like a more complete and the party and like a more complete team. I mean, to do maybe something even bigger with even more information. So yeah.
There's one more, I think.
Oh, question.
Oh,
Just in terms of, like you say, reinvestment into the scene, making this, what change were you hoping to see? Was that even, were you just going to document it? But like the fella said, like, the fact that a lot of people turn up now just for the party, and then they'll turn up and no one stays for the stack. So, and then you need lawyers. And then there's people who like need to invest into buying the stack and things like that. These are all things that keep the scene alive. So are you hoping that this will instigate that sort of change, or just to educate people, or to just document it?
It's really both questions. I mean, both messages. So one of the messages is, as I like to say, I did this film for my mom, meaning for someone who doesn't know what a free party is, what the underground music is, and giving them the possibility of having more tools than what the BBC gives them. Okay. The second message is for the underground community itself. As Sebastian said, sound systems have been facing a problem since, you know, day one. They have been facing problems and issues with the law, and they need lawyers. You know, they need to buy equipment back, get the equipment back. So I really hope that, you know, this will help the community that goes to Free Party to, you know, donate and help sound systems. Again, going back to me being a silly 17-year-old, it's like, oh, you know, I'm going to a Free Party, it's fucking free. And when there was the donation jar, it was like, what? Again, it was my first Free Party, and then I came to understand, hey, they need to eat, you know, they need to carry on. So like every time, then I started to, you know, donate. You know, I was glad I was doing it. But again, not everybody eventually understands this. So I hope that this film, you know, will try to understand better. And I'll make another difference between UK and the rest of Europe. So because, you know, the whole Free Party scene was born here, I think that people are more, the Free Party community is more used to the donation thing, while the rest of Europe Free Party scene is not. Possibly because, you know, we do free parties, maybe they're slightly, we have the Tekno, so they're bigger and they're more difficult, let's say, to control. So it's more difficult to ask for an entrance, while here in the UK there are way more squat parties, you know, like small parties. And so it's easier, like literally at the entrance, to ask to donations, like give us £5. So yeah, these are the two messages I would love for the audience to, you know, to catch. There was a hand there, yeah.
Again. During this whole process, you've been working with a lot of different types of people. How did you find your experience managing coming to one narrative? Because everyone has lots of different point of view on this,
Yeah.
and it's very hard for a single person to do that. And for all of us to come here and be like, yeah, we completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I find that very clever.
So the narrative, actually, I could say, like someone asked me earlier, what was the most difficult thing? But probably on the same level, it was also the narrative. So the first cut, the first edit of this film was 4 hours and a half, right? And it had no like musical pauses, so it was like 4 hours and a half for the interview. And then, so I'm now at a version number 18. So this is version number 18. And so I did the first, I think, 9 versions myself. And at the point, that's when I involved Gabriele, who's the, let's say, artistic director. And then he started to say, out, this away, chop this, and I was, no, that's important. Because, you know, it was becoming my baby. And, you know, I was scared. I didn't really want to let anything go. But, you know, eventually, you guys couldn't watch like a 6 hours documentary, or maybe you could. So at one point I also thought, you know, maybe I should do a sort of 3 episodes documentary. But again, I was challenged by the fact that I was just by myself. And I couldn't really get enough B-roll, you know, coverage footage to, you know, to create 3 episodes. So eventually, you know, we said, let's just like a kind of, so it's about 1 hour interviews that becomes 1 hour and 70 minutes, you know, with all kind of the musical transitions. So yeah, that was, it's been extremely difficult. And actually, as we speak, Simone, the camera operator, who is also an editor, I have just a couple of days ago, I gave him the hard drive with all the footage. And he's going to edit a few like video peels, so kind of like a 3 to 6 minutes videos with all the footage that we didn't use. So like, and we'll just put them on YouTube so everybody can watch it. And so yeah, you'll slowly have more and more behind the scene sides.
I think you'd be quite surprised to see how many people would like to see a 4-hour one. A couple of people said to me they couldn't believe it was like 2 hours went so quickly, and I think, yeah, with an interval, I'd definitely like to watch a 4-hour one. It was really good.
But yeah,
yeah.
See, that's a project.
The extended version.
Actually, that was still is like a sort of uncut version. So like because as I said, I won't be able to make a engaging documentary of 4 hours and a half. The amount of archive footage that you need is just huge. The amount of licenses for music you need is huge. So you cannot, I mean, unless you're big, you're Netflix, you cannot make a 4 hours documentary. So ask the community.
Yeah, I've got
possibly.
loads of footage from Balter and stuff beforehand, yeah.
Actually, well,
Interviews. Yeah.
so well, you know, I can start with like kind of sort of uncut interviews, uncut, yeah, just version with just interviews and much more information. So yeah.
I'm sure if it was made clear that the proceeds are going to help the community would provide.
Well,
sure.
actually, like I must also say like a massive thanks to the community. I mean, I would say like 90% of what you watch today has been given by the community. So again, fuck social media, but on Facebook, you know, it's plenty of kind of free party, techno-oriented groups. And so what I did was just pitching these projects, you know, both in Italy and the UK and the rest of Europe, Poland. And immediately the amount of emails with the WeTransfer links that I received was just huge, seriously. Everybody contributed. And that's also why I think that this film, someone said it at the Q&A on the other day, like it's proper DIY, meaning, and it's not just mine, I think it's everyone's. Community, I mean, it's this film, yes, I did the brain, whatever, but it's been supported by everyone. Everybody sent me pictures, photos, and of course with the professional archive footage, you know, I had to create contracts and deals, but they were underground deals, because you don't have idea how much, you know, archive footage from, you know, late 80s and 90s cost. It's just insane. But I explained how the project was, you know, kind of created, and, you know, we managed to find like a nice deal. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much support the underground community gave to this project. So yeah. Amazing. All right.
We'll end there. Yeah.
Where was the party in the snow?
That was the French Tech some years ago, 4 or 5, where unfortunately quite a few bad things happened, meaning because it was snowing, so yeah, it was cool, but at the same time, quite a lot of people, you know, had physical problems, because, you know, like dancing 12 hours just in your swimming trunk, it was not good. So there have been quite a lot of ambulances and nasty episodes. So yeah, it was the French Tech anyway in France. Okay. I'd say, let's play some music.
Yeah, let's get another music.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.